And we're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, we are live now. So why don't I go ahead and start the announcements? Today we talk about what the Big Short professor knows about investing. Also, Apple versus the FBI. What do you think? And men's ideal body type being imaged around the world. Life Lesson 40 comes up with Travel Expands Your Mind and a special Storycast announcement. Welcome to Boomermale.com, the podcast for men 50 plus. Today's date is February 26th, 2016. Right now, you are here with yours truly, Mike Matthews, and
it's Tom Herring. How are you this afternoon, Mike?
I'm doing great today. I am doing great today. And this is an afternoon recording. It's not a morning recording, so it's a little different time for us.
It's all good though, right? I mean, it's just 12:30 and we're getting ready to kind of get close to a weekend action here. And I really wanted to play hooky, if the truth be known, Mike, today, because we're got about 3 more hours before the rain's hit. And I wanted to get out on my bike, man, again.
I understand that, but I have a meeting this afternoon with a client, so that's going to be a big thing. Normally I don't on Friday afternoons. I kind of try to schedule that away, but hey, take it on. So I'm doing that today, and a number of other things. What have you got going on that was exciting? Anything recently?
I'm just trying to think, and really not a whole lot. I've been pretty darn busy like you. I did talk with both my sons here. They're both kind of looking around at how the job world looks, and they're both gainfully employed. So it's kind of interesting. They're on the same track, and I don't know if they've been conspiring, behind my back, but I think it's a good, I think it's a good thing.
Well, as long as they're conspiring to stay gainfully employed, that's what we want to hear.
Absolutely.
Actually, last night, Wendy and I, my wife, Wendy and I took off to go to a premiere of the Portland Young Filmmakers Showcase, at which we saw 5 different films. They were all shorts. I think the longest was 17 minutes. And that was a young filmmaker who happens to be a friend of mine, someone I've worked with on some videos and things like that. Mm-hmm. And he's had a little experience. He was in Wild with Reese Witherspoon.
Okay.
When that movie came out, he was one of the 3 young Turks. There were 3 of them. And he's the one who had more lines than I think the other 2 did.
Awesome. More residuals for it.
Yeah, and he had a great film. I mean, he was the director, producer, and he had a great film, very entertaining. And the other films were really good. I'm real happy to see that level of creativity come through in our young crowd. So,
well, doesn't it? Yeah, it broadens your mind, doesn't it? I mean, really,
it definitely does. It definitely broadens your mind, which reminds me of something else that broadens your mind, and that is Life Lesson 40.
Absolutely, it is exactly that. And this is the life lesson in the book 51 Life Lessons Every Boomer Male Should Have Learned by Now, by yours truly. And the title of this chapter is Travel Expands the Mind. And it's something that it's easy for us to forget as we get a little bit older. We get set in our ways, we get stuck, and we get into these routines and habits. And I'm telling you, traveling, even if it's just, in your own state, in your own county, it really does some amazing things. You see things that you don't normally, see in your everyday life when you're in your little rabbit trail, basically. And I think it's a chapter that our guys are going to really like. And I cite a specific example where it was the summer before last when I went back to Boston with my girlfriend, and I've not been there in about 25, 30 years, I think it was. And man, how beautiful New England was, how amazing just, life can be in a different city, let alone a different country, and which we will be talking a little bit more about today on some amazing travel destinations. So there's kind of a theme going on here, guys, but we'll talk more about that. But anyway, it's a chapter that I think you will enjoy, and it might inspire you, spark you a little bit to get out of your comfort zone and go see some places, with some friends, with your your significant other, however that works for you. I highly recommend it. It's like it's your own personal MBA, it really is.
Yep, absolutely. And here's what I want everyone to do. I want you to go to Boomermale.com and log in on the site, register to receive your own copy of 51 Life Lessons Every Boomer Male Should Know by Now. It's free in PDF form on the website. You just need to do a little registration and you'll get the PDF form. You download it from a page that pops up. You can also purchase copies though. You can get a Kindle edition on Amazon for $9.51, and you can get a nice paperback version, all 112 pages printed on nice paper with a nice little cover on it. And that is $17.51, correct, Tom?
That is exactly right. Yep.
Okay, good. So I got those correct. That's definitely a direction to take. So just log into Boomermale.com, do the registration there, and you'll get your own copy. Or if you want, you can purchase a copy at Kindle, for Kindle, or in paperback. Just go to Amazon. Let's get into the stories for this week. Now, the first one that I talked about there was that men's ideal body image was imaged around the world. Now, this was kind of interesting. A guy took a photograph. This has been done on the women's side a bunch. And, of course, they say terrible things about their bodies. They hate themselves. They don't look good. They want a, bigger butt, a smaller butt. Who knows? That's a woman's thing, right?
Yeah.
But this guy said, well, okay, so let's try it with guys and see what the heck happens. And so he took a photo and he sent it out to 19 different designers and illustrators, people who work with Photoshop in 19 different countries.
Yeah, and it was this is just wild. 19 different countries, and they photoshopped their ideal body. So it started with one of the guys at, I believe it's Online Doctor, and it was like one of their regular employees. So they took a picture of this guy.
Oh, yeah, that's actually the photographer.
That is the photographer. Okay.
The photographer took a self-portrait. Yeah, he took a selfie.
So
he's not a chiseled 300 movie kind of guy. I mean, he's a little pudgy, nice guy, but a little pudgy and all.
So yeah, I mean, so there are 19 different portrayals, I guess, or composite type, Photoshop
images. Yep.
Photoshopped images of the ideal guy in these different countries. And you know what? I'm just shocked at how different everybody is. And we kind of think, the American, our ideal is we all kind of think the same way. And this is anything but that. I mean, they are all over the place. And it seems like, Micah, you read this as well, that only the US and the Philippines really have that quote, chiseled look.
Man, they wanted an 8-pack. The US and the Philippines wanted that full 8-pack, Greek god look. They wanted that. And funny part, we all know the Australians are macho kinds of guys, right? We have some friends living in Australia, both you and I do, and we all know that. And yet the Australians picked pretty much the typical dad bod.
Totally dad bod.
In the middle, a little heavier in the shoulders, but
lots of Foster Lager. Yeah, lots of that Foster Lager there.
A little Foster Lager. Hey, the Australians will never drink Fosters. You know that. That's export only. That's terrible stuff over there. They don't drink that.
It is. You're right. You're absolutely
certainly not the export version.
Yep.
But yeah, that was pretty doggone funny. And the weird part was about 50%, just about 50%, did slim down the body a little bit, but did not add musculature or anything else. They just made them a little slimmer, and they didn't add the 6-pack, 8-pack look, none of that kind of stuff. That was only the US. And just for, if you don't make it to the website to see all the photos here, and the link to the Online Doctor, superdrug.com, website to see how this actually worked. I mean, the American whose photo was taken, definitely 220 pounds, maybe 6 feet tall. and not, not built for playing football. He was
Definitely.
definitely
No.
not in that kind of shape. So they took that body in the US and in the Philippines, and they carved him down. They took his waist from probably 40, maybe 42,
Mm-hmm.
down to, what, 30, 32?
32, I was
And
going to
they
say.
just chiseled the heck out of this guy's abdomen. It was pretty incredible.
Well, Mike, the other hysterical thing, and this is why we'll have a link to this, you guys, if you want to go take a look at it, because it is really worth looking. Taking a look at this kind of how wildly different we are. But the funniest thing to me in the end is how the different hairstyles they've got. You got the Russian with kind of the Schwarzenegger from Conan the Barbarian look,
Yes.
and then you got this really kind of look hipster kind of US guy with the hair and the beard, and it's just hysterical. So anyway, we're going to have a link when we put this up, and you guys can go take a look and see for yourself.
And I thought this was a great opportunity for everybody to take a look at this and recognize that you can go to the beach in a lot of places and you don't have to look like you're 25 years old and starving.
Yeah.
You can look pretty good no matter where you go. Outside the US, and don't go to the Philippines either. They like that chiseled look. But the rest of the world, we're all pretty safe.
Yep.
No matter what our age is, we're all pretty safe. It was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. Good story.
You know what's not funny is this whole fight going on between Apple and the FBI.
Wow.
What are you even looking at there? Do you have any?
Well, I did a little bit of background. I have been, as this is going on. I have my own opinion. I'll share it here in a minute, and it might be totally different from yours because you and I haven't compared notes. But I went back and I did a little bit of research, and Apple has had a history of actually working with law enforcement and the FBI since 2007. They've been very they've complied with requests to help them in law enforcement issues, and there is really no known reason they can find, at least in the articles I've looked at, why Apple has had this sudden shift. And so I'll be interested to hear your comment, Mike. But I came to a conclusion today after reading this story, and I've been thinking about it in the last week and a half, since this has kind of come onto the mainstream media channels and outlets, that I believe that Apple should provide that information to the FBI. If a court order has been issued, that's the thing that I always am looking for. Court order has been issued, so it's passed the legal acid test in my book. Mm-hmm. They should provide them with the information. I do not think it compromises the amendment, any of the amendments. It doesn't protection of rights, civil rights. I don't think it does that. I mean, this is
so that's a good valid way of looking at things. It's a good valid way of looking at things, because it definitely takes a legal position and says, hey, do what you think is appropriate legally. Now let me give you the truth.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's the truth, but I'll listen to it. I'll listen to your opinion.
Well, I'm a flaming personal rights advocate here.
Yeah.
And I'm also, kind of a techie. I've worked at a lot of technology.
You are a techie. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I've worked in the security area of networking and things like that. In the marketing side of it, I should say. But in the technology companies, I've worked in that area.
Sure.
Here's what's wrong with the request.
Let's hear.
Here's why Apple is doing the right thing by pushing back. What we're talking about is the iPhone, and it's a mobile device. We happen to be talking about a certain type of iPhone, a certain model, the iPhone 5C, which was the less expensive model that was brought out. The situation with the iPhone 5C and the particular version of the iOS operating system working on that particular phone is that there is a way to rewrite that operating system through Apple's capability back to an older version that also eliminates, it's not an older version, it's the same version of the operating system, but a version of the operating system that eliminates all security on the phone, which would then allow the FBI to crack in to the phone. They would have to guess a 4-digit or 6-digit number, and that's it. But all the rest of the security would be off the phone. So any bank accounts, any other information would be available on that phone. All you have to do is figure out the numbers for the first 4 digits, or possibly 6 digits if you use the 6-digit. Now, this can be done. Apple could write this. Number one, you're requiring Apple to rewrite an operating system. I don't know how long it's going to take them, but I'll bet they could do it in a couple of weeks. Here's the problem, though. Once you create that operating system, once it exists, it then exists in the hands of anybody who's able to grab a hold of it. Now, we can look at Coke. The formula for Coke is a trade secret.
Yep.
It's held by 3 individuals. It's locked in a safe. Only 3 individuals know the combination of the safe and how to create the combination of chemicals and flavors, things like that, additives that make Coca-Cola. It's only 3 people in the world that can do that, and they're not allowed to be on a plane at the same time or any of that other stuff.
Right.
It cannot be replicated when it gets out. You can't replicate it once it's mixed. The problem with this is you could lock this away, do the same thing, but merely by having the phone out there, it could be replicated. Also, it's easily replicated, and what that means is it would be able to compromise any phone at any time, any iPhone at any time. And believe me, there are hackers who will figure out how to do that. They're much more inventive, as we've already seen. And that means that if you call an Uber car, they'll take an extra 50 cents off of your Uber bill. You know, so they'll charge an extra 50 cents and they'll take a 50 cents from you. You'll never know it's happening. Neither will the driver, neither will Uber. You like taking that little picture of the check and having that go into your bank? Great, because all of it's going to go into the coffers of some hacker. That's what the problem is, and that's what people aren't recognizing. That's what FBI is not recognizing, and that's something that Apple doesn't want to talk about right now because they don't want people to realize how insecure they really could be. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens as this continues to go on and how much information we actually get out of this. The consequences of actually doing this are devastating. I mean, this could literally close Apple's doors. It would make the iPhone sales completely drop to in a bucket. I mean, they go to zero. Who would ever want a phone that would do that?
Right.
And as soon as Apple gives up, you know what's going to happen. Android will end up the same thing and everything else. And so we'll have our phones, but the only thing we'll do on those phones is make phone calls. Which
let me. Well, so let's close this up because we're going a little long on this. But let me just close with one. And you have very good. That's excellent insight. Here's one thing that I read in the same article. I'm just quoting from it. You know, this is something that we forget. So the prevailing statute that governs the obligation of private companies like Apple in cases where the government needs help unlocking digital devices is the All Writs Act of 1789, which was
that act was written so you could break the wax seal on an envelope.
Well, I mean, it was obviously written way before smartphones, is what you're saying. But here's something: Congress even updated the law in 1946. When wired rotary phones and U-shaped handsets were the standard. And the point this guy says, now that there's a smartphone in nearly every pocket, we probably need digital era laws rather than pre-industrial ones. So that's the other, that's something else. But you have a very good point. Let's have our guys, we would love to hear their comments, what you're thinking out there. So, log on to, we're going to have a page set up for that, Mike, are we, for them to kind of?
Yeah, we're going to have a page set up for that. People can log in and give us their opinion. Absolutely. And one more thing I'd like to mention.
Yeah.
The FBI has all of the backup records from the iCloud account that was on that phone. So they have everything up until they took possession.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting as to where this is all going to go. But we'll have that up on the website. You'll be able to log in and leave, comments and everything else. Just make comments in the body of the post and let us know what you think. So that'll be interesting. Hey, you know what? That is one thing that affects how people think and what they do. We have another story about how people think and what they do, and that's the Big Short professor. He actually knows something about investing, and he uses behavioral and economic theory to do that. I was really fascinated by this, Tom. What did you think about that?
Well, he's a really smart dude. And for those guys that have seen The Big Short, this professor, his name is Richard Thaler. Richard is the guy that's kind of explaining in layman terms, at least that'd be, perfect for me, because I'm not a, financial guy. And
I'm not either.
Neither are you. And we really learned a lot in that film. Now, have you seen the film, Mike, at all?
I haven't seen the film.
Okay.
I've seen clips
of it. Well, I saw it, and he really does an outstanding job. But his, the bent here on this, number one, I did not realize he actually has a fund that people can invest in. And Richard Thaler is 70 years old. He's a University of Chicago professor, so he's at a very heady, prestigious university. But he has stock picking theories that are really based on some of the old school ways of looking at things. And there were a couple really obviously brilliant guys, two really value investing pioneers. Is kind of what he bases his model on, and that is Benjamin Graham and David Dodd. And a lot of those theories are what Warren Buffett also uses.
Right.
So, like I said, though, I did not realize he had a fund, and this fund is obviously, since the movie has taken off, has grown by leaps and bounds. And not just the movie, but he has had this trending, and he's done extremely well over the last 15 years. The name of his fund here, I'll get a name of it here for you, because
the name of the fund is
Fuller and Thaler Asset Management is the company. And is that the fund as well? I think it's Undiscovered Managers Behavioral Value Fund. Say that 3 times.
That's it. Yes.
Undiscovered Managers Behavioral Value Fund. Well, this has averaged 10% over the last 15 years in return on investments. So an extremely very good return, even in all the crap of 2008. And going back 15 years, you're right at 2001. So you're through a couple of really bad financial periods.
Oh yeah.
But a fascinating, and I don't know what the standard requirement is to get into this fund, but if you guys are interested in looking at it, I would highly recommend it if you're interested.
It's managed by J.P. Morgan Chase.
Correct. Yeah. And originally it was not, and they picked it up a few years back. And he's basically saying, I think he closes out the article, one of his fund managers, now it isn't Thaler, but it's one of his fund managers, a guy with the last name of Potter is his name. And Potter says, they really like volatility because, he uses this, this comparative. It's like a surfer needs surf. Everybody's going to look bad on flat water. If it gets a little choppy, you'll be able to show your skill. And I think that's a nice little analogy there, where I think they are going to do quite well in this period. So who knows, who knows where. Now stocks this week have kind of been up, and we talked about the choppiness, I think either last week or the week before.
Yeah.
And this isn't something we always talk about, but it's very timely. And, as I said, if you want to learn more, take a look at our site. We'll have a link to see this article called Big Short Professors Fund Swells in Past Year. So
yeah, and I just want to mention one other thing, and that is he has a book that came out last year, and it's kind of a combination of a memoir and a look at the field of investing. It's called Misbehaving: The Making of Behavioral Economics.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I'm not going to sit there and recommend it, but I'm going to say, hey, if you are interested, maybe check it out. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to look at it on Google Books or anything else and see, okay, what's it read like? But since it's a combination of memoir and history, it could be pretty good.
Yeah, and I think that the last two things I totally forgot on this fund is that it's actually beat 99% of its competitors in the last 3 and 5 years, according to Morningstar. And those of you guys that are investors know that Morningstar is a very strong, um, evaluator and research arm of looking at the various funds that are out there in the world today. So,
Yep,
yeah,
absolutely. And not only beat 99%, he brought in I think it was 10% and averaged annual returns over the past 15 years, which is like, wow,
really good. Yeah, yeah.
that's just incredible. So yeah, you can check that out on our site. Now, we kind of have a travel theme going here. We've talked about 19 different male body types around the world. We've talked about our life lesson, which was on how travel expands your mind. And we wanted to talk a little bit, just a short moment or two, about the fact that, hey, 2016's here. I mean, we're headed into March next week. And that means it's time to start thinking about, if you're going to go on vacation, where are you going to go? What you going to do? Well, we kind of tied over to a Lonely Planet article, and they gave us the #1 location. Do you know what the #1 location is, Tom? Did you read this?
I read it, Mike, and I did not know it until you told me. So I want you to spill the beans here.
Totally blew me away.
But here's one thing was not aware of Lonely Planet. So I guess I've been off the planet for a while because I didn't even know what it was.
Well, Lonely Planet started actually as a bunch of guidebooks.
Exactly. And it is the largest publisher of guidebooks. Yeah, it's the largest publisher of guidebooks in the world, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And they grew into a great website, and then they grew into basically a travel planning agency, kind of. So they do a lot of different things. But they declare that Transylvania, Romania is the #1 location to go in 2016. Would not have been my first choice, except Romania is really a beautiful country. I've known some people from Romania. I know that a lot of the what we used to call Eastern Europe, and it's still Eastern Europe, but we used to think it was the Eastern Bloc. A lot of that was left untrammeled during the post-World War II years because there wasn't a lot of money around to rebuild things and such. So when you go to many of these places, like if you go to Prague, or you go to Transylvania, or you go to Bucharest, or you go to wherever in those countries, they've cleaned them up, they've done a lot of work on them, they've refit buildings and things, but they didn't just tear them down in the 1950s and 60s and put glass, high rises in their places for the most part. They remain in a condition that is very much the Victorian era, the end of the 1800s, early 1900s. And still, I mean, Prague is a beautiful city and of course has new buildings, but there's, entire swaths of it that would remind you of places like Paris, where the buildings don't really get much over 6 stories high. And then until you get outside the main city, outside the old city, then they rise up, of course, and you get high rises. But a lot of it is very, very oriented towards a human scale factor. There were 10 other countries that were listed, and
well, I'll tell you the one that intrigued me.
I was going to ask, what were you interested in?
Well, there's one that's just, believe it or not, heads and tails, because I've just been talking about this with my girlfriend recently. And the country is Botswana in Africa. I mean,
and that's #1 on the list.
God, that looked like such an amazing, and again, it just shows you, I'm not up on a whole lot of stuff, needless to say. So that's back to this travel thing, man. We got to get out there, dude. But this looked like a wonderful place. It's democratic, and you think of Africa and a lot of turmoil and a lot of political discourse, and dictatorships and mass killings, and here's this democratic, progressive, enlightened is what Lonely Planet describes it.
Yep.
And still invigoratingly wild. And the story from poverty to become one of Africa's most stable, thriving societies is inspirational. So I would love to go there if I picked any on this list. And there are some outstanding places that looked really good. There was not a place on, I think, this list that I wouldn't want to go, to be honest with you.
And I'm going to read the rest of this list.
Go ahead. Yeah.
People know. So, I mean, Japan is number 2. Number 3 is a place that most of us are pretty familiar with, the USA. And, frankly, it's got great places to go for vacation. You get a selection of many types. There was also a big selection of island spots, one of them being Palau, another one being Fiji, well, it's not an island, it's a continent, but it's kind of like an island, Greenland. And Australia, another continent that's kind of like an island. Actually, Greenland is an island, isn't it? It's not a continent now. There was discussion of that at one point. Australia, though, also on the list. Along with that, getting back to our thoughts on East Europe, is Latvia and Poland. So those are both on the list as well. Baltic states and such, but still relatively closed off from U.S. travel for many years. And last on the list, which kind of surprised me, was Uruguay. They're not last on the list, I shouldn't say that, but last in my list right at the moment is Uruguay, which is interesting. And I'm kind of surprised Argentina might not be in there, but maybe Argentina's been overrun now. I know it's very popular for people to go there.
Boy, I'll tell you, Mike, this list, it's an excellent list. And there's something for everybody here, because there's a pretty diverse list here. I mean, the idea of Uruguay sounded very interesting. I read about that. And of course, Greenland also intrigued me. And of course, you got Fiji there, Australia. I mean, God, if you guys can't find something on this list, I don't know.
So we'll put the list on the website. Everybody can take a look at it and, discuss where you want to go. Let us know where you want to go, because I'm not going to go to all those places this year. I'll be lucky to finish all those places by the end of my lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. But we're going to work on it. At least the thoughts there, that's for sure. So.
Exactly. And actually, I have not been to most of these places. Obviously, I've been in the U.S.
Yeah.
I landed in Japan a few times. I never actually got out of the plane in Japan, mostly on the way to China and Singapore. And that's it. I've never been to the other locations on this particular
list.
I
have not either. I'm looking. I thought I'd at least be one of these, but no, I have not.
And I don't know about Greenland. I'm not so sure about that, but I really want to go to Iceland.
Yeah, that for certain. So yeah, it's
now,
great.
Do you have anything else to add to what's going on here?
I got just one thing. We're running up on our time here. I just titillate everybody a little bit. So I just finished recording, and it'll be up on the site probably on Monday, a new story cast, and it's a Boomermale musical icon. And I will venture to say that every single Boomermale, everybody in our audience is going to know who it is, and I will tell you who it is. And it's all about, before there was the king of pop, as you guys all know, was Michael Jackson, there was the king of rock and roll. And you know who that is, Mike, right?
Elvis
Presley. And I found a really intriguing story about Elvis that I don't think the majority of us know. We know a lot about his music. We know a lot about Graceland. We know a lot about his films. Mm-hmm. There's a cool humanitarian story that I uncovered, and you knew about it, Mike, because you've been a fan of his for a long time, but I did not. So that is going to be up on the site. It's being edited as we speak, and has some cool music. And I would love for you guys to give it a listen and let us know what you think about it. So,
I love Elvis music. I thought that was great, and I do remember seeing him on the Ed Sullivan Show when he went on. And Ed gave him the stamp of approval, which kind of opened things up and settled the rock and roll dispute, or quieted it down a bit. It still took to the Beatles to get a little bit quieter, and even they got a lot of hassle back in those days. But I kind of kind of ruined my daughter for anybody because I snuck an Elvis CD into her CD player when she was about 3 years old. You know, the one next to the bed that you turn on at night and you have lullabies and things. Well, she had lullabies and things, but I also snuck an Elvis CD in there. And
Nice.
so she would
I don't know this story, Mike. This is a good one.
Elvis.
Yeah. I'm going to have to talk to Wendy about this, but I don't know this story. This is a good one.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And she still likes Elvis. She still thinks Elvis is great. So if you start young enough, you can make sure that they enjoy certain things. Of course, she's 25 now. So
well, yeah, and you're gonna have to send her a link to the story, and we'll have to see how she feels about it. I'd like to hear her comment. She's obviously not a boomer male, but you know, she might have some cool things to say. So
she might have some cool things to think about Elvis. That's true. And her and her ballerina friends.
Exactly.
So I think we're pretty much finished here. Probably time to close it out, right, Tom?
I think it is. Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask everybody, take a few moments, go to Boomermale.com. We've got a number of different stories for you to look at, to enjoy. You can give us feedback on the Apple FBI issue. You can tell us where your dream for travel is coming up in 2016. Give us your best shot because it's well, you already heard where I've been. Tom's probably been to a couple of more of these, and you know, we are not going to be able to see the whole list. So I'm relying on the rest of you to give us that. Along with that, when you get on the site, definitely click on the button, sign up for the email newsletter, and get a free copy of 51 Life Lessons Every Boomer Male should have learned by now. If you'll do that, you'll get a free PDF copy right there on the website. It's very simple. The sign up is just an email address, and you'll have that. If you would prefer to purchase a copy, you can get a Kindle version on Amazon, or you can get a paperback, 112-page paperback version on Amazon. Beautiful soft cover, nice paper, real nice cover on it. So any of those directions, but we'd love to have you get the free PDF version. Let's see, you can stay up to date on all of our storycasts and all of our podcasts if you sign up for that newsletter. So we'll send out a reminder that says, hey, you know, new information was posted, a new podcast is out, a new story. You can also get our podcasts on iTunes and Stitcher. Pretty soon, Google Play is going to release their podcast player, so you'll be able to get it on that on all Android phones as well. And you can also go to Hipcast, which is where we host, and you can get it from there. I want to thank you all for joining us. You can catch us on Facebook as Boomermale, all one word, or on Twitter as @Boomermale. And let us know if you want us on any other social media. Other than that, Tom, we have our 3 maxims. Why don't you remind us what they are?
Yes, guys, really appreciate you being with us today. And from both Mike and I and everybody here at Boomermale.com, we want you to be well, do well, live well. And until next time, happy trails.
Great. Okay, so what are we going to name this edition?
Are we off the air? Do you have us off the air?
No, I don't have us off the air. I have us on the air. Should I take us off the air? Why don't we name it and then we'll get off the air? Or do you have something you want to name it and you want to discuss?
Shall we? What about, I think because we have the travel thing, what shall we say? Something along that line, like travel expands the mind, or?
Yeah, we could do travel expands the mind or travel expands your mind. We could just do that.
I like that better. I like that better.
Yeah, just same name as the chapter.
I totally, and I've got to record that and get that to you as well. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. So we've got that settled. That's one thing out of the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't have much else to go. I'm going to stop the broadcast and we can clean up a couple of things. And I've got to get ready to go to a client meeting.
You've got to get going. So I'm going to keep working ahead, and I'll have a couple things to you